Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Art 290, Art Appreciation. My name is Professor Nicole Duet. I am the program chair for studio art at Louisiana Tech University in the School of Design. I'm recording a little video for you today to just introduce you to the class. We're going to do 3 things together today. We're just going to take a brief look at the syllabus, talk about what you can expect to learn this quarter, talk about what some of those assignments you can expect to do might be, what the goals of the class are in general. We'll do that for a short period of time. Then I want to do a little bit of a walkthrough through Canvas, which is the platform that you might be using all or in part over this term together. So I just want to kind of walk you through that, give you a few tips about how to navigate your way through that and how to use that resource. And then we're going to take a look at some artwork together, just a little bit of time at the end of the video to give you a taste of what we're going to do together over the course of this term. I'm really excited to get started. So let me go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to take a look at some of the course syllabus information. Okay. And just a quick couple of slides here. So the course textbook is the 12th edition of Preble's Art Forms. So you are either reading that in a digital format or in a hard copy. The course is a combination of readings from the textbook, pre-recorded lectures on my end, and then lectures that I'm going to add to the course content that will give you a chance to hear from contemporary artists who are making things out in the world today. So we're going to try to weave together those 3 different experiences. Art appreciation, in its most basic sense, is just the study and enjoyment of art in all of its various expressions. So it's for gathering a little bit of the language of art, learning how to look at artwork in a way that goes beyond just sort of passing by and checking off the list and I like it or I don't like it, and a little bit more into being able to actually get some of the experience that an artist may be trying to allow the viewer to have. So the information is going to build gradually over the course of the quarter together. We'll start out just by introducing a few terms, some of the language of art, if you will, which will set the stage for being able to see the pieces and the components of the different types of artwork, and then how understanding what an artist uses together with how the artist uses that comes together to create an experience for the viewer. So the course is separated, it's broken into modules. Each module covers at least 2 chapters from your book. So you will have a reading assignment for each module and then a lecture that is meant to supplement those modules, okay? So in some of these modules, what we're going to explore are the techniques and approaches that artists use to create art. And then we'll also learn about looking at art and architecture in your community and in cultures around the world. So the goal is to bring art closer to home by helping you to see art all over the world. In doing so, I have a feeling that what we'll discover together is that art is really all around us in some ways that are obvious, like the monuments in our cities, in some ways that are less obvious, city murals, for example. We'll look at all of those different types of examples. So first, we want to learn painting, sculpture, drawing, photography. What are all the different materials and forms of art making there are? And how are they different from each other? How do artists do what they do within those materials? But then we'll also explore how art and art history relate to the art and architecture relate to the history of the times. So we will touch on art history from the Renaissance up until the present moment. So rather than trying to do a sweeping overview of art history from ancient times to the present, we're really going to focus on that early Renaissance time period and look at how that sort of grew, developed over time in relationship to the history, to the politics, to the events of the culture, how all those things relate to each other up until the present moment. Why do we express ourselves through drawings and paintings and sculpture, photographs, and other means of visual communication? Why do we build architecture that looks like the architecture of the past or vaguely reminiscent of that architecture of the past? These are just a couple of questions that we'll address together and many more throughout the term. So during this journey together, if you will, you're going to study art and architecture and how that defines and expresses both the past and the present. You'll examine the functions of visual culture in your daily life. And by the end of the term, you will have a better understanding of the functions and influences of art and architecture in your life. So I want to have you be able to spend a little bit of time looking at this painting by the contemporary African-American painter Kehinde Wiley. The question that I always say is the best place to start when you're either standing in front of a work of art or you are looking at an artwork online, as is the case with this one. Ask yourself, what do I see? And so if you are relatively new to this, that might mean just looking at this painting and listing the elements that are in it. There's a figure, there's a horse, there's a sword, etc., right? But you could also talk about the color that you see. You could also talk about the patterning that's happening in the background. These are all the visual elements that Wiley is using to create this painting that's titled The Officer of the Hussars. So what I would like for you to do, I'm going to stop talking about that painting. I want you to keep looking at it, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what the official goals are for your growth and your understanding and your learning over the course of this quarter. So we want you to be able to demonstrate a knowledge of art's terminology, of artistic styles, of the formal elements and principles of art and design. The formal elements and principles are the language of art, or what the artist uses to make a piece of art. So in the case of this painting, there's color, that's one of the elements. There's pattern, that's another one, right? So elements, and then the principles are the how. So the elements are the what. What are the things that are used here? The principles of design are the how are they being used. The second goal that we have is to develop the ability to identify and discuss key works of art and architecture from historical periods. And so discussing within each historical period means understanding a little bit about what the values of that period were. So in the Renaissance, what was happening in history, what was happening in the culture, what role did religion play in the production of artwork and in the experience of artwork? The Renaissance has its own cultural historical events, right? So too does the Romantic era, so too does the modern era, so too does the present. So as those qualities change, we want to be able to understand how art also changed and vice versa. Does the art change and then influence the culture? Does the culture experience a shift, and how does that show up in the artwork? So that's a goal. And to be able to talk about it, we have to know the first thing, which is the terminology, the language, and the styles. It all works together. Our third goal is to be able to describe the media and the technical processes that are commonly used in artistic production. What we'll find as we travel from the Renaissance up until the present, that those materials start out very classic paint, oil paint, pigments, brushes, thinners, etc. And as we move through time, some of those old processes will stay and continue and just evolve, and new processes will be added as new technology is developed. So we're going to talk about all the different materials and how they're used in processes, but we also want to come to understand the purposes and functions of art and architecture in the place where you live, as well as in cultures around the world. If you just start going through your day and ask yourself where art shows up in your life, what would you say? What are the things that you consider artistic in your city, in your neighborhood, on your school's campus? Good questions, good places to begin. Okay, so the more we look, the more we can start to understand the art that's always around us. And then the final goal is not only to be able to look at a deeper level, to understand how artists are using what they use to do what they do and how that relates to history and culture. We want to be able to analyze and to talk about it. And so part of how we learn to talk about it is in class discussion, or if you're using the online discussion forums on Canvas, or in writing. So you're going to do a little bit of both. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just end this little PowerPoint right here. I want you to remember the Kehinde Wiley painting. We're going to come back to that at the end. Okay. So let's take a quick look then at what Canvas is going to look like for you. Okay, so I'm pulling up the Art 290 page. Let's see if I can drop this down a little bit below. Yeah, there we go. Much better. Okay, so when you log on to Canvas, you're going to see on the left-hand side all of these key points that are navigating points. The one that is going to be most sort of used is the courses post here. And so I'm on that tab, and that's going to take us to the Art 290 list of sort of topics that we can cover. The home page is the one that we're on right now. And you can see there's a little bit of some information about the class and a welcome. So a little bit more of a course description. And then down at the bottom, some links where you can get to know me a little bit better. I tell you a little bit of information about myself and the work that I make, some of the things I've done recently. You can also click any of these links to get to the syllabus, to get to technical skills and requirements. So what do you need to have in terms of a computer? How important is Wi-Fi connection? When is not having Wi-Fi connection a reasonable excuse for not getting something done? So all of that information is here for you. If you need help, that is technical help, or related to the course, there are two different sources you can go to. For Canvas, for help on Canvas in particular, you can click this link here. And then for help about the course requirements, you can click this link here. You can also ask your teacher. You can also email me. So my email is on the syllabus as well. Okay, the second important tab that you want to be able to have access to is the announcements tab. So announcements will be posted on a fairly regular basis. They should show up for you right when you log on. So you want to click, this one, for example, was posted earlier this morning, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning almost. So if you click on that, then you're going to get the subject of the announcement. So this is all about the welcome, tells you a little bit about the class, more than we're talking about now, tells you about how, if you're a dual enrollment student, you're going to be working with your teacher's instructions together with these course materials, what you'll learn in the course, all the things that we've just gone over. So what I want to look at just briefly here are the graded assessments in this online course. We have 7 modules that we're going to go through together. For each of those modules, you'll have a video lecture given by me and a reading. So in the readings, I'm going to give you a couple of questions for each module. So again, there's one of these assignments for every module, which is the reading response assignment. So I'll give you a couple of questions to think about as you have read the chapters. And then once you've read them, you can respond to those questions. Now, depending on the class that you're taking, you'll either respond to those in paper form, you'll have a conversation with your classmates about it, or you'll submit that to an online forum. Okay. For further instructions, ask your teacher. Okay. So those two have to do with the readings and the lectures, okay, those 2 written assignments. There are 2 larger projects in the course, one that will happen right off the bat in Module 2, where you'll do a little bit of a worksheet that has to do with the language of art and design. And then there's also a final project that is pretty exciting. It's more of a research project. It's about looking at artworks and then establishing a kind of a travel guide for somebody who might be visiting a museum, right? For each of the modules, I have an additional supplemental kind of activity. One of my goals is to also allow you to hear from the artists themselves as much as possible. So I have researched artists, graphic designers, architects, and I'm introducing some short video lectures where you get to hear the artists themselves talk about how they do what they do and why they do what they do. So every module, with the exception of the 2 that contain those larger projects, every module, and that means 5 of them, are going to have 3 to 4 short videos to watch with your class. And I'm going to give you the same set of 4 questions for each of those video links that I want you to be able to discuss. I actually really love this part of the class. This is what not included in your textbook. This is, just based on my own experience with some of the courses that I teach here at Tech, and things that I think will help you to use the chapter information in a way that creates where you can see the relationship from past artwork to present artwork, or maybe apply the terminology in a new way that's not included in the textbook. So that is an additional supplemental item that you're going to see with every module. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to look at this list again. You can click on the syllabus, and that will take you directly to it. But what I'm going to do is drop down to what I think is going to be the most used and most important link or tab in the entire Canvas page. So let's look at the modules together. Okay. The very first thing that you'll see is a heading called Main Course Documents. This is where everything that you need to know related to grading, as far as the syllabus goes, grading requirements, as far as instructions and rubrics for each of the projects that I just talked about. There's an assignment sheet for each one of those. Because the class is writing intensive, and some of this research-driven writing, some of you may need a refresher, some of you may have done some of this before, some of you may not have done this at all, because this is a really important component of what we want to be able to do by the time we finish this course together, is to write and to understand how to use citations. So there are several resources posted to Canvas, both in video form as well as this writing and citation help document. So if I click on the arrow and drop down the menu, you can go directly to any of those things, okay? So you can see here assignment instructions, and then indented all of the assignments that I just discussed. Click on each one of those to take you to an instruction sheet for how to do what you want to do. Above that, so here's your syllabus, obviously, and then just below that is the course schedule and module checklist. And so if we click on this, it's going to take you to a list of all of the modules, including the first one that you're going to do, which is to begin at Start Here. Okay. Start Here is really about reviewing all the things that we've just talked about, including taking a look at familiarizing yourself with the instruction sheets. And then again, because we're writing, we want to start to understand what some of the key things to look out for. We want to, if we don't want to take someone else's writing and call it our own, how do we cite that? How do we acknowledge that in the paper? If we're looking at something from the textbook that we want to include in our response, how do we paraphrase? How do we take the author's words and reword those so that it is our own expression? So I have some videos for you to kind of help you learn how to do those things and practice those things to get better at them. Okay, so each module, then you'll see the assigned reading here in this column. And then if there are any handouts that I want you to read, I also listed those on a module by module basis, okay? So in module 1, we're going to be talking about the functions and purposes of art. If you go to the next column, you'll see the 4 components of this module. The readings, which are your textbook readings, and it's the lecture notes, which is listening to the lecture and taking notes, the reading response, which are the questions that I ask you that are related to the readings, and then finally that additional component, which are links to watch the artist viewpoint. I've given you a rough estimate of about how much time each of those things is predicted to take. Some of this might not apply to you at all. It may take a little less time. It may take a little more time depending on how your class progresses. So this is just a ballpark estimate, okay? And then in the final column, you can see the points that are assigned to each, okay? Okay, so that is then the course schedule and module checklist. So what I recommend is that you print out a copy of this or look at this tab often, okay? Reason why is because you'll want to use this as a checklist, both to make sure that you've read all the chapters in the reading and you've done all the required assignments for this module, right? Okay, these are additional links. What I've tried to do is build in multiple routes to get to the same thing. So we've already talked about the syllabus. This, if you click on this, it will take you to those assignment sheets. So again, there's several different ways to get to one thing. If you ever get confused about navigating Canvas, there are 2 things that I recommend. One is to go to the next button, which just takes you to the very next thing that I want you to look at. So you could have clicked on one of those blue links to get to this page, or you could have just clicked next, right? Which is what I just did. So clicking next will take you through. And again, you can skip all of these links, or you can take a look at them to have more information about the homework assignments. You can click previous to get back to where you were, but you can always click modules to get back to that key point, okay? Okay, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit. This first tab looks like a lot, y'all, but it really is just all the documents related to the course. You may or may not ever visit that again. I just wanted you to have them in one place so that you can access them. Why would you not visit them again? Because they are all built into the modules too. All right, so these are not live just yet. This is a little tab where you can find out more about me. This is an interesting online forum opportunity. So for example, with the artists' videos of the speakers, the contemporary artists that I've given you links to, if you wanted to treat that as a chat kind of forum sort of exchange with your fellow students, you could answer the questions in the student lounge and then respond to each other's thoughts about things, have a conversation that way. You could also post questions here about any concerns that you're having or responses that you have to any of the readings and communicate with fellow students that way. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is start here, which is to review all of the things that we've sort of loosely covered in this introduction, which I'm trying to keep relatively short, so we can get on to the much more interesting things, which is the course content. But I do want to point out one thing which is important. There's a contract here to sign. So after you watch the writing videos that we talked about a minute ago, I want you to come back and sign. It's a short quiz. It's got 2 questions. Did you read the syllabus and do you understand what plagiarism and paraphrasing are and citations are? Okay, so you do need to review the material before you can do this. You do need to do this before you can move on to the first module. Okay, so after you've done the Start Here module, here we go, y'all. We are going to start module 1. So all of the other drop-down menus after this are fairly straightforward. So right now, I'm just showing you what you'll get to in the first couple of weeks of the course, depending on the pacing of your class. So the important things are, Module 1 is going to give you the lectures. It's going to give you an introduction to the lecture first, the assigned readings, and then all of the discussion assignments, lecture notes, and then the reading assignments too. Okay, so all of the module, and so every module is going to look like this. It'll have just these components to it so that you know where to start to get an introduction of what you're going to cover, and then what the lecture, where the lecture is, what the readings are, and where the assignments are. Okay, so all contained within each individual tab. So I'm going to stop there with talking about Canvas. And I want to go back to the Kehinde Wiley. I just think this is a wonderful work of art. I think it's very contemporary. I think it's very relevant. I think it's beautifully painted. And I think this teacher's explanation of it and the way he talks about why Kehinde Wiley does what he does as an artist is fascinating, and it makes me excited to get started. So I'm not going to see you again. I'm going to play the video and let you watch it, and I will look forward to seeing you again in Module 1 for our first lecture. Enjoy all. It's going to be a great journey together.